And here we go. Trade rumors surrounding the Giants have officially caught fire. Before we dive into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We crossed our goal of 91,000 subscribers today, so the road to 100K starts now. 44% of our people that watch this channel are not subscribed. If every single person that was unsubscribed changed it and hit that big red sub button right now for free videos every day on Big Blue, we would get to 100,000 subscribers today. This is New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Video number 2 of the day. That is why you subscribe. Is a big move coming for big brain Joe Schoen? The New York Giants just restructured the contracts of Paulson, Adebo, and Jevon Holland to create almost $5 million in cap space for the 2025 NFL season. This comes on the heels of every single NFL insider, Giants beat reporter, and myself telling you that the New York Giants are taking and making calls to add a wide receiver. Now, why did the New York Giants go out and clear $5 million in salary cap space? There are multiple reasons that they could have potentially done this. Let's start with this. The wide receiver trade rumors are hot. The New York Giants do not have the most cap space at the moment. And if they are going to trade for a player that has a high base salary, they're going to need more cap space than they have right now. And shout out to my guy, Ricky Scoops, the best in the game. If you know, you know. He was back on Twitter momentarily, dropped a handful of scoops, and then he bounced on ad here. So the Giants, trade rumors heated up. Then they restructured contracts. And then Ricky says it sounds like the Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers is being traded out of town. And he won't be in silver and black much longer. So Ricky essentially saying he is hearing that Jakobi Meyers is going to be traded. He then followed that tweet up by saying the Dolphins are actively shopping Jalen Phillips, a name to monitor at the trade deadline. Sounds like Miami is ready to move him. Teams are also calling the Dolphins about Chubb and Jalen Waddle. I wonder if the New York Giants are a team that is calling Miami. And then he dropped the bombshell. Sounds like the Saints are now open to trading Chris Olave. They weren't willing to move him in the offseason, but that stance has changed. And the team is now listening to trade calls. So you create cap space. Trade rumors are heating up. And I think that we could potentially see a wide receiver trade. I don't think it's guaranteed at this point. I don't know what wide receiver or what caliber wide receiver the New York Giants are trading for. But if you just follow the trail and the paper trail, the Giants are prepping to make a move. It is also true that the New York Giants had just $2.5 million in cap space prior to the restructures of Paulson, Adebo, and Jevon Holland. And they were likely going to need to restructure contracts to just get through the remainder of the season. I found it a little bit interesting, though, that Paulson, Adebo, and Jevon Holland were the two players the Giants chose to restructure. It makes sense, but just me doing some groundwork, it didn't sound like those were the two most likely options just a couple of weeks ago. I get it. You just signed to your team. They're both young players. You're expecting them to be here for the long term. But there were two obvious ones that you could have made restructured as well, which essentially just means you're pushing their money a little bit further into the future. The player has no say-so. They actually just get more money early up, more up front. You're turning some of their base salary into a signing bonus. You can still create more money via restructures on the salary cap if needed. So let's say that the Giants did do that just to operate throughout the season, and they still do want to trade for a wide receiver. You can create almost $9.8 million via a Dexter Lawrence, contract restructure. And you can create $4.1 million via a Brian Burns contract extension. Another restructure is probably needed for a trade. So there are still moves the New York Giants can make. There's multiple reasons they could have done this. To have money to work throughout the rest of the season, or to potentially make a trade. It's just pretty convenient timing that the hottest the Giants trade rumors have ever been. They then restructure contracts, and then Ricky drops 2 bombshell insider scoops about 2 wide receivers that have been linked to the New York Giants about potential trades. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but when it does, we'll get you guys a video as soon as possible. If you want it to happen, if you want the Giants to go out and trade for a wide receiver, hit that thumbs up icon for me right now. Let's run the likes up on today's show. Let's get to 2,000 likes for all of the real ones. All righty, coming up next, Dan Duggan of The Athletic put out an article this morning naming some wide receivers that he thinks could be traded, and he attached trade value to them. Go support Dan Duggan. He does an awesome job covering this team. Go subscribe to The Athletic. We'll break that down in a second. First, though, I got to tell you about our proud sponsor of today's show, and that is Prize Picks. When you download the app, create an account, and use that promo code CLNS, play your first $5 lineup, they're going to give you $50 in lineups for free. All that information will be clickable down in the comments and description of today's show. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. Prize Picks also has a new feature and is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Like if you want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, you can now do that all on the same lineup. I'm rolling with a 2-player lineup for Week 7 in the NFL season. Give me the less on passing and rushing yards for Bo Nix, and I'm seeing Cam Scadaboo get inside the box this week, and I'm taking the more on his rushing or receiving touchdowns. That is a demon pick. When you see a red demon emoji next to them, that means the payout is a little bit higher. If I get both of these plays correct, I'm going to win 3.5 times my initial lineup fee. Shout out to Prize Picks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Shout out to them for sponsoring today's video. All righty. Shout out to Dan Duggan of The Athletic. Does a great job. Go support him. Go subscribe to The Athletic so you can read his articles. And shout out to the Fireside Giants crew over there. They are crushing it. They put together these graphics, and I thought they looked pretty cool. He listed Chris Olave as a trade target for the Giants, and he listed his trade value as a 3rd-round pick. This comes on the heels of Tom Pelissero saying he thinks a 3rd-round pick could get it done for Chris Olave. And I went back and watched every catch of Chris Olave's career yesterday, and I kind of walked away by saying, I don't really know how good he is. And that's not to say I don't think he is good. I do. I just don't know if he's an elite wide receiver. I also would like to see him in a wide receiver 2 role. I think he's being forced into a wide receiver 1 role. I think he could be a top 10 wide receiver 2 in the NFL. More talented than anyone on this receiving crew for the Giants, and I think he could hold down that wide receiver 1 spot this year. I like the idea of him and Nabers being the go-to targets going forward. I don't know how well they complement each other, and he also has a long list of injuries as well. But if you could trade a 3rd-round pick for him, which the Giants actually do not have in 2026, you could dip into the 2027 draft pick stash and get it done. I'm all ears. I would probably send it for a 3rd-round pick, but I do have my concerns with Olave. The next wide receiver he mentioned was Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. A lot of money on his contract, but that has already been paid up front. Wouldn't ding the New York Giants cap space too much to go out and get him. This is a guy that was, in my opinion, a top 10 wide receiver at one point in this league. Then the gambling issues happened. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. Not really sure why the Titans would want to trade him either, as he is really the only difference maker they have at the receiver spot with their young quarterback. A 4th-round pick. I don't love it. I don't hate it. If you can negotiate that to a fifth, send it. But I'm at least intrigued with the idea of Calvin Ridley. A player we have not talked about that I am wishing the New York Giants could go out and trade for is Romeo Doubs, the wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. Dan Duggan attached a 5th-round pick as his potential trade value. The Packers are loaded at receiver, and with Jaden Reed and Christian Watson coming back soon, there's been talk about them moving on from a receiver. I think Doubs is extremely underrated. Did have that thing last year where he skipped a week of practice. Don't know what happened there, but bigger bodied wide receiver could play on the outside. I think it would be a really good compliment to Malik Nabers. He's also extremely talented in contested catch situations. I'm a big fan of Doubs, have been for a while. If the Giants can get him for a 5th-round pick, I would absolutely love that. Jerry Jeudy is a name that has been linked to the Giants going on a couple of years now. You go back to 2022, he was a name the New York Giants supposedly heavily pursued in the trade market. Available for a 5th-round pick is what the thought is from Dan. I like Jerry Jeudy. I don't love Jerry Jeudy. He has a higher career drop percentage than Darius Slayton. That is worrisome for me. I like my wide receivers that can catch the football. And I wonder if he is kind of hitting that trail of regression. Day 3 pick, not stressing over it. I'll be happy if it happens, but he's not at the top of my list. And I would actually rather trade for Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders than I would Jerry Jeudy. Same draft compensation, a 5th-round pick. Myers is one of the most sure-handed wide receivers in the NFL. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He is elite in contested catch situations. Not as much juice, I would say, as Jerry Jeudy, but I think he actually is a better pound-for-pound wide receiver, and I think he complements Jaxson Dart and Malik Nabers a little bit more. Myers is a free agent at the end of the season, so if you make that trade, you're probably doing it with the intent to extend him going into the future. This was an interesting one. John Mechie, former Alabama wide receiver, was on the Texans at the start of his career, now plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. Duggan listed a day 3 pick swap. Look, if you're trying to just add someone that can play, I don't hate this idea. I'm looking for somewhat of a difference maker. If I'm giving up draft capital, I get a day 3 pick swap, nothing really all that serious. I'm looking for a difference maker. I like Mechie. I'm not sure how much he actually helps this New York Giants receiving crew, though. Jalen Waddle is number 1 on my list. Tom Pelissero mentioned him as a player that could be traded. Ryan Dunleavy, who covers the New York Giants, said he did some legwork and heard that there was a potential way he could get traded. Ricky Scoops said that teams are calling about Jalen Waddle. If he is available, I would trade a 2nd-round pick for him today at 26 years old. He's one of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL, has a couple of 1,000-yard seasons to his name as well. Waddle would be an elite addition to this team. He's number 1 on my list by far. Rashid Shaheed is a name we've heard a lot about as well. We got to see him up close and personal back in week 5 for the New York Giants when he scored a 90-yard touchdown against this defense. He's explosive. He is who the Giants thought Jalen Hyatt was going to be. He's got a limited route tree. It's vertical or it's just a screen right off the line. Explosive player. Maybe the fastest wide receiver in all of the National Football League. For a day 3 pick, I entertain it. I'm looking to fry bigger fish, though, at this point. Juwan Jennings has been a name that's been floated out as well. Not really interested in the 6'3", 210-pound, 28-year-old wide receiver. He's got some rib issues going on right now, has an ankle injury he's dealing with. He's looking to get paid in the offseason. I know he had a big year last year. I just don't really think he's a needle mover for this team. Alec Pierce is a name that we have heard could potentially be moved from the Indianapolis Colts. I'm a big fan of his. Big play down the field wide receiver that could play on the boundary at 6'3", 210 pounds. Still just 25 years old. Kind of not playing all that much for the Colts. Has also been battling with some injuries this year. Averaged over 22 yards per catch last year. He takes the top off, can make contested catches. I don't think the Giants have a wide receiver like him, and I think he'd be a great compliment to Malik Nabers when he does come back from his ACL injury next year. Dontavian Wicks was a name that was brought up yesterday amongst the New York Giants Twitter people. I believe it was Dunleavy who mentioned Wicks as well. Can create separation, some of the best feet, and one of the best route runners in this league. But he also drops the football at a really high rate. Last year was really bad for him. And kind of similar to the Romeo Doubs situation, the Packers have an excess number of wide receivers, and they could potentially afford to move on from one. Trey Harris is a name that I know a lot of Giants fans are interested in. I was a big fan of Harris coming out of the NFL draft, has ties to the New York Giants players, was the go-to target for Dart at Ole Miss, and he was the high school quarterback for Malik Nabers as well. So he's got a relationship with Nabers, with Jaxson Dart as well. The Los Angeles Chargers are supposedly looking for offensive line and running back help. I just don't know why a team like the Chargers would be willing to part ways and sell low on a guy they just drafted in the second round. But if you really want Evan Neal and you want, I don't know, Devin Singletary and a fifth-round pick, sure, I'd do it. I just don't think he's probably the least likely of all the guys we have talked about on today's show. Would love to have it, but it takes two to tango to make a deal get done. Name a wide receiver you want the New York Giants to trade for. We've been talking wide receiver trades since Malik Nabers got hurt. I've got Waddle number one on my list. I'm extremely interested in Olave for a third-round pick, but I do have concerns with that. So give me a name to go watch some tape on tonight in the comments right now. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you haven't yet, smack that thumbs up icon. Subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 100,000 subs.